Hi, and welcome to our fifth video clip on anthropology. Today we will be discussing human nature. What does it mean to be human? We've already talked about our creation by God as human beings. We've talked about male and female. We've talked about work, and we've talked about the image of God. Now today we want to talk about a very touchy subject, and I think one that gets a lot of poor thinking involved in it, and that is human nature. Well, what is human nature? What does that word mean? We use the word human nature every day, but we don't use it in a precise way like we should theologically. We use human nature as in our everyday speech as a way of explaining that which usually occurs. That is, we use it almost like a proverb. We say it's human nature to mess up, or it's human nature to try to get all you can get, or it's human nature to do this or that. And what we really mean by that type of human nature is that we are talking about our sinfulness. And we're not talking about human nature as it was originally designed by God. To talk about human nature as originally designed by God is a completely different idea than human nature that we talk about on a day-to-day basis. I don't need to talk about human nature on a day-to-day basis because we're all pretty familiar with that. And I'm not going to say anything you don't already know. So let's talk about human nature in its precise form, in its theological form. And hopefully after this video clip ends, we'll be able to better and more intelligently discuss what we mean when we say something like human nature. Well, what is a nature anyway? Well, theologically, it is a list of properties that something possesses that make it what it is. So a human nature is the list of properties that we all possess, that without which we would not be human. It's in Latin, it's the sine qua non. Without this, not. This is the list of what makes humans human. And if you remove one or more of these things from this list, we're not human anymore. Some of this list is pretty easy to put together. Others is a little more difficult. But before we start, I want to make one more quick mention. There's a difference between nature and person. A nature is a list. A person is a center. Well, that's not even a good one either. A person is a being in communion. I would rather go with that definition. Natures don't do anything. Natures aren't capable of doing anything. Natures guarantee that the persons who possess the nature can do things. So the nature is the guarantee that something is possible, where a person is the actual doer. And that's an important distinction. And that's a distinction that the church fathers had to reach about 1,500 years ago, especially when discussing who Jesus is and what it means to be human, what it means to be Jesus, and all those things. We'll talk about that more later. But right now I wanted to make that distinction between person and nature. A person is a doer. A nature guarantees the ability to do it. So then what are the essential elements of humanity? What makes humans human? Well, a body. That's pretty easy. I call that corporeality. We have a body. Because we're going to talk about human constitution in our next clip. And we want to talk about body, soul, spirit, things like that. And so right now we're just going to go with the language, we have a body. And now would be a good time to mention something else and ask yourself, what is the blessed hope of the Christian? A lot of times we think that the blessed hope of a Christian is an eternal reward in heaven. Well, that's true, but that's not the whole truth. The blessed hope of the Christian is the resurrection of the body. That even when we die and our bodies go into the ground and our immaterial part, our soul, spirit, whatever that is, goes to be with Jesus, we're not complete. Because remember, Adam was created out of the dust of the ground. God formed him out of dirt. And when he finished forming him, then he breathed the breath of life into him and he became a living being. So Adam can't be Adam fully and completely without the dirt. And so it's good to remember that the blessed hope of the Christian is not to get rid of this body, but it's to have this body changed so that the corruptible nature, or the corruptible way it is now, is not becomes incorruptible. Where corruptible has put on incorruptibility, are Paul's words in 1 Corinthians 15, that we will be changed and we will become incorruptible and immortal, but yet still flesh. How do we know this? Because Jesus rose from the dead and he ate fish. He was flesh. He told Thomas, touch me, touch my side, touch my hands. I'm not a ghost. A ghost doesn't have flesh. Touch me. And so whatever kind of body we have will be the exact same kind of body that Jesus has now, only it will be glorified and changed from what we possess now. We don't know exactly what that's like, but the blessed hope is the resurrection of the body and the end of the effects of sin and death on this body, that we will be glorified and made to be like Jesus, whatever that means. I get goosebumps just talking about that, because it's such a blessed thing, and to not be dragged down by my sinful tendencies, but to overcome them in a body that cannot sin is just that's just cool. So corporeality, we have a body. Also, we have soul function. I'm just calling it soul function now because we'll more clearly define soul in our next video clip. We have intellect, will, and emotion. Can't be human without those. We also have spirit. We have the ability to commune with God. Without that, we are not human. Now, some people can't access these things, but that doesn't mean they're not human. It just means they're not accessible. Some people never, because of various mental illnesses or birth defects or such, never get to the point where they're able to have strong intellects or are able to control their emotions or able to latch onto their wills. But it doesn't mean they don't have them. It just means they don't have the ability to use them. They're there. They're just not accessible. And so they're still human, of course, but they just don't have full range of use of all of their nature. But the nature is still there. Another thing that makes us human is that we are finite. We are creatures. We are bound by space and time. Even in eternity, we will still have bodies. So we will have some sort of spatial limitation, even if we don't quite get that. But at least for the here and now, we are finite. We have there's a day of our birth. We have a starting point. We have physical boundaries. We have boundaries of our knowledge and our power. We have all sorts of boundaries. Another thing that makes us human is that we are communal. We are built for relationships. We are built to relate to God, to ourselves, and to others. So relationality, that part of that image that we are beings in communion, is part of what it means to be human. We are built to love, and who we are is constituted in some measure by others. Other persons, human and divine. God constitutes who we are. Our best friends constitute who we are. Our co-workers constitute who we are. Our family constitutes who we are. So we are persons in communion. And we can't forget that we continue to be persons in communion and that we are made for community. Another element of our human nature is that we are over and under authority. We are over the creation, under God. The realization that we live in somewhere within the chain of command. is good to know, and that is an essential part of who we are as humans. As we spoke about in the last video clip, we are creative. Humanity is essentially creative. One of the things that will dehumanize a person is to stall or is to stunt their creativity, that they can't be creative, they can't do things. Put a man on an assembly line for 50 years and don't let him think, and he will go crazy. Put us in solitary confinement and we will go crazy. We are built to commune. We are built to create. We are built to express ourselves. We are communicators. We want to express ourselves in our words, in our actions, in our images, whatever. We are always wanting to express, commune, create. And that's part of essentially what it is to be human. Now, the next two, and I think everybody can agree with what I've said so far, that all of us possess those things as part of our nature, even if we can't access them. It's part of what it means to be human. Now, the next two things are going to be a bit of a stumbling block for some folks, but I'm fully prepared to defend it. Another essential element of human nature is goodness. Humanity was originally created very good. The Bible tells us this. Once God got done with everything, he said it's all very good. At the core of human nature exists the good plan of God and the ends for which he has prepared it. I know there's been the fall. I know there's sin in this world. You don't have to tell me. I understand that. But human nature is essentially good. That's going to create some difficulty for some of you. But the nature is essentially good, and it must be, because Adam was created very good. We will be very good when we are raised anew with our incorruptible bodies. And not only that, but Jesus Christ, who is fully human, was also very good. Sinfulness is not part of human nature. That's the other bombshell I'm dropping. Sinfulness is not a necessary or integral part of human nature, because sin had a beginning. There was no sin before Adam and Eve disobeyed and ate of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. There will be a time when there will be no sin. When I am raised to newness of life and I am in my glorified body, I will be like Jesus and I won't sin, period. So what we're really saying about sin is that sin has a temporal existence. It has a beginning, it has an end. I will continue eternally, but sin will stop. And because sin stops, it's not part of essentially who I am. I will continue when sin is gone. My nature as a human being will be perfected and glorified and will not contain sin at some point in the future, and neither will yours. You too will be sinless and perfect and complete after the resurrection. So then there's no way that we can say that sinfulness is part of your nature, because your nature doesn't change. Your nature is what makes you human. And we hear the old saying, to err is human. Well, that's not true. It might be true experientially, but it's not true theologically, because Jesus never erred. Before Adam ate of the tree, he never erred. And after we are all raised to newness of life, we will never err. We will not sin. And so at the core of human nature is goodness. It is the image of God and the teleological, that is the end from the beginning, the ends for which we were created. That's what lies in human nature. And that, even though sin has disfigured it, is still very good. I cannot believe you're saying that we are not sinful, we don't have a sinful nature. Well, that's exactly what I'm saying. Our nature is not sinful. Now, we may say that we have a sinful nature from the idea of talking about nature as personal experience, but remember, at the very beginning of this video clip, I made the distinction between the two different ways that we utilize the word nature. We use it in everyday experience and we use it theologically. Right now I'm speaking theologically and saying that sinfulness is not part of human nature and it cannot be. Well, then how does it attach itself to us? I don't know. I have an illustration for it, but it's my country boy West Virginia illustration. I used to have a collie dog, and she would go up in the weeds up behind the house and root around looking for things and come back in the late spring of the year and be covered with ticks. And I could remember sitting on my porch and picking ticks off of her. Now, some of the ticks she could get. If they were on her leg or somewhere her mouth could reach or her foot, she could reach them and dig them out of herself. But up inside her ears, she could not reach. And ticks love a dog's ear because it's warm, there's plenty of blood there, and they're protected. They can get up in that ear and latch on and then get big and fat, gorging themselves on the animal's blood as they do their parasitical work. And I liken sin to that. Sin is a parasite that has attached itself to our nature. It's not fundamentally part of our nature, just like the tick is not fundamentally a part of the dog's ear. But it has attached itself to us, and it's attached itself in such a way that we can't get rid of it. We have to have our owner come along and take care of that, just like my dog did. And the only way that sin can be eradicated from our lives is for our Creator to do His complete, full, and finished work on us. But the tick is not who we are. The tick never becomes part of us. It is nothing more than a parasite that's there to suck the life out of us. And unfortunately, it does that. And so, properly theologically speaking, human nature is not and cannot be sinful, because sinfulness is not one of the properties that makes a human being. Because we have multiple examples of human beings, both past and future, who are not sinful. Adam before the fall, Eve before the fall, Jesus in his whole lifetime while he lived on this earth, and then all of us as we are raised to newness of life. So, properly speaking, sinfulness is not part of human nature. It is a parasite that is latched on, but it's not part of who we are. And I think that's important in a lot of ways, because we tend to, as we talked about earlier in this series of lectures, deal with our assumptions. And we read, especially as Protestants, because evangelical Protestants begin with the utter sinfulness of human beings and then proclaim the gospel as the cure. We tend to fall into a trap of only seeing half of humanity. We see the half that is sinful, we see the half that is part of our present experience. And we tend to forget the way humans were originally created, the way Jesus lived, and the way we will be in the future. The way we were created in the beginning and the way we will be in the future is what true humanity is. And again, that is all in the image of the image, Jesus Christ. We tend to get bogged down in our current situation where sin is all around us, inside us, sucking the life out of us as the tick in the dog's ear. But because that's our experience, we tend to use that as our driving assumption to say that we are sinful beings. And we're not. We commit sin. But now, using one of our philosophical words, I don't think it's proper to call human beings ontologically sinners. And if we do, it's only in the context of we are moving from death to life. Those who live their lives out in sin, they may properly be called ontologically sinners. But redeemed human beings, no, we're not ontologically sinners. The old is gone, the new has come. So let me restate and clarify what I just said. To those who are perishing, yes, they are ontologically sinners, because their end, unfortunately, will be destruction. But to those of us who are saved, to those of us who have been reborn by the Spirit of God, we're no longer sinners. We are children of God. The old has gone, the new has come. But either way, there's no way that we can say that sin is part of human nature. It can't be. Not possible. Because it's not what it means to be human. Because if sinfulness is what it means to be human, then Jesus wasn't human. And we can't go there. So let us recap where we've been. We looked at human nature. We made a short list of the properties that make us human. And remember, that's what a nature is. It's a list of properties that without these properties, we're not what we claim to be. Corporeality, soul function, spirit, finitude, communal, over and under authority, creativity, and goodness. There may be others, but that's the list that we're going to go with, and that's good enough for us. So next time we're going to talk about the human constitution, body, soul, spirit, all those things, and we're going to try to come to an understanding of who we are as humans and what we're made up of as we continue our discussion of anthropology. I hope that this video clip has been profitable for you. I know the reality that hit me like a ton of bricks when I finally realized that sin is not ontologically part of humanity. It's not constituting who we are. And what freedom that gave me to know that sin is something that has attached itself to us and that we are part of it. Or I'm sorry, it has become part of our existence, but it's not part of who we fundamentally are. So stick around for the human constitution, and we'll be back at you shortly. I hope you're having a great day.